So having been diagnosed with ARDS and double pneumonia affected my life because I was hospitalized for a really long time, and the recovery and after effects from that really limited my ability to not only work, but also take care of myself and live the same life I was living before I was diagnosed. Having been diagnosed with ARDS and COVID and having spent 3.5 months in the hospital, part of it on VV ECMO, I had a lot of complications with my family. There was a lot of decisions that had to be made and trauma that came with that. And I think there's a lot of grief that continues even after recovery. It doesn't stop when a patient survives, it continues. I continue to deal with the after effects emotionally. So in October of 2020, I felt bad and I went to the doctor. And at that time, we were testing for COVID, like COVID had just started. And I was got two negative PCR tests. And they thought I just had a seasonal virus, which was impacting, my respiratory. It was a respiratory virus. And I was sent home twice. The third time, I actually went to the hospital and they finally diagnosed me with COVID and double pneumonia. And they still sent me home the next day. So it did take like a couple hospital visits and a couple really into like I don't um, I'm very cognizant of my body, and I felt like if I was going to the hospital, I really didn't feel well, and I felt like sometimes there was so much going on at that time and so many sick people. Like I understand why they did it, but it wasn't until I called the ambulance for myself and my oxygen was at 40 when it should be in the upper 90s that they really did realize just how sick I was. So I was on life support for over 2 months in the hospital because of ARDS. I was placed on VV ECMO, which is pretty intense form of life support, and decisions had to be made. I was not capable of making my own decisions at that time, and my family had to decide how long to continue treatment because I was not expected to survive. My likelihood of survival was very low at certain points. I had been through lots of complications. And so they had to decide, right? The doctors and the hospital were ready, or they were willing to consider ending support. And so my family was really challenged by the question, like, do you want to donate her organs? Are you ready to say goodbye? And so those decisions are really impactful, and everybody has a different opinion. Sharing the patient voice with the physician community is really important. I think that they do have a lot to learn from us and like what we've experienced. And sometimes there's a real division between ICU doctors and kind of the continuum of care. A lot of them don't find out what happens to us afterwards. So I think sometimes for critical care doctors in particular, it's nice for them to see what some of the outcomes are because they don't always have the ability to continue with us. I was very fortunate where my team was really invested in my story and my survival. So when I was out of the ICU, they continued to visit me, and we actually have developed a really wonderful relationship with a lot of them. I'm close to a lot of my doctors, nurses, respiratory therapists, and that has given me like such a, like it has healed me so much. And I think in some ways it's healed them as well from a lot of the work that they do.